The Pilgrimage of the Heart podcast is brought to you by pyo.yoga, an online studio for all your yoga needs, including videos in Spanish and Russian. This podcast is also brought to you by Pilgrimage of the Heart Yoga, located in San Diego and serving over 1,000 yogis a week.
Welcome to Pilgrimage of the Heart interviews. Join us as we explore fascinating people and ideas in the world of yoga. Hi, this is Sujantra, and today our guest is Amy Rollo. She's talking to us from Portland, Oregon, Amy?
It is Portland, Oregon.
Yes, she's talking to us from Portland, Oregon. And if you want to follow along on her website is www.amyrollo.com. And Instagram handle is the same, right, Amy? Amy Rollo?
You got it. Yes, it is.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Your
Thanks
website,
for having me.
Yeah, your website, you have a great website, and on it you describe yourself as a photographer, which I understand, but also as a Pixie Warrior. And so could you tell us a little bit about what that means?
That came to be a friend. I was traveling with a friend probably 6 years ago, and I'm very short. I'm like 5 feet tall, and a friend of mine was not much taller than me. And a friend of ours that is very tall dubbed us Pixie Warriors because we are... apparently came across as that. But I kind of kept it for my own use for years, and I liked it more and more. And along the way, I've found other people who describe themselves as warriors, and everything that kind of embodies, which is strong. And then with the yoga thing, of course, it comes along with the warriors, and it just kept suiting me more and more, or maybe I became more of that description the longer I held on to it.
Nice. Yeah, I really like it. And I noticed, again, your website's really well organized and clear, and you're a great writer and photographer. And I noticed that you've been to India, Nepal, Malaysia, Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam. So you've been throughout Southeast Asia and Asia. And I'm wondering,
Yes.
in all your travels, what like you could share with people who haven't been there of like how people are different there, and yet what's similar between people?
Well, the thing the first thing is that I can't tell you. You have to go experience it for yourself, especially a place like India that is just so, everything is so based on their culture and their interactions with other people. They're very much a people culture of food. I mean, they're all food cultures. Travel is food. And, but the thing that you find is that they're all people that, before I went, I got talked out of going to India twice. And by the third time, I just decided I'm going, and no one's going to stop me. And, so I went, and because it's so scary, and it's just that it's unknown to people here, or Western cultures. They don't know if they haven't experienced it firsthand, that it's not that scary. People were always trying to help me, especially as a woman on my own most of the time. And the thing that is most different, I would say, is that, especially now being back in the West, is that there's very little community here. People in Asia take care of each other. Here, it's really every man for himself. I would have to say their cultures, or because of, especially the States are on such a world stage, a lot of people I met wanted to emulate the Western cultures, but they just still have this foundation where community is so important to them. And you don't see homeless people like you do here. Over there, like, everyone has a place to go. You see them maybe in the cities a bit, but small places, definitely not. So it's vastly different. The food is very different too, and I'm definitely an eater. So
Yeah, I like what you said about community, because I actually traveled to quite a bit of Southeast Asia with my teacher years ago, and one night he remarked, he said, we were actually in Vietnam, and he was saying how in Vietnam, every person is connected to 100 other people, whereas in the West, so often we're just connected to 3 or 4 or 5 people. And so just what you're saying, that connection and that community.
Yeah, everyone wants to help you, and I mean, they'll offer you food, and even though you're this Westerner traveling around and have the money to buy plane tickets and visas, and they will still take care of you as if you are one of their own.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing I found, that it's just so warm and welcoming.
And how did you first come to the practice of yoga?
I kind of fell into it about 10 years-ish ago, maybe a little more, in New York. I just ended up starting to go to classes, and at first it was totally a workout for me because I was very into fitness. And I'd always been involved in some kind of movement thing. Like I grew up as a dancer and a gymnast, and playing multiple sports. So it just kind of suited me to have this like body movement practice. And as time went on, and I started to evolve, like to get more into it, and then realize that there's way more involved in yoga than the physical asana practice. So as I kept going, the East, I just went to Asia for the first time 2 years ago, but I just got back from there. I've spent most of the last 2 years over there. And it's kind of just evolved into this thing where now I'm back in the West looking for classes that are more Eastern-based yoga classes, where they speak to the other parts of yoga that are not just do Trikonasana, do this pose and breathe through it. So it's been interesting being back just to see the differences there as well.
Right, because
it's been a 10-year evolution of my yoga practice,
and it's a big evolution going. Because I noticed on your website also that you had done the 10-day Vipassana retreat, and for those people out there who don't know, it's primarily a silent 10 days, right?
Yes.
And I once saw this movie about, I think it was like the most notorious prison in India, and they brought in a 10-day Vipassana retreat for those prisoners who wanted to do it. And it was so amazing, the transformations to see those notorious criminals go through in that 10 days. And so I'm wondering what your experience was.
I don't know if they made 2 movies, but there was one where about a prison in like Arkansas in the States. But they talk that is the same thing. They show the prisoners going through it. I have actually done 2, and they were very different experiences just by nature of the fact that the first one, it was so new to me. And the second one I did in Myanmar, where it came from, and because I wanted to go where it had come from, where the teacher grew up. Even though I realized I don't need to do that again. But it's intense. At first, it was concepts I didn't really think about, or I kind of, on the surface, intellectually had come across them at some point. But by nature of the process of sitting silently it's 9 days of silence, and the 10th day you can speak to the other people in the course just as a little buffer before you go back into the world. Sorry, now I went on a tangent. Now I need to go back.
About your experience of what it.
My experience, it's really intense, and it was the first time it was just kind of groundbreaking. I came out of it just learning things that I couldn't unlearn, and it's kind of the same thing that I can sit here and tell people about it, but it's something you have to experience on your own. Absolutely. And it's very powerful. I've never met anyone who's done it and said it's not worth it. The second time was almost more intense just because of the nature. I was in a foreign country where they kind of had, they're the same courses all over the world, but the rules of the place are kind of different just by nature of the culture.
Right.
And so it was different in that sense. And it was harder for sure, because my brain got smarter trying to tell me why I shouldn't be there doing this thing for like the first 4 days. I just didn't want to be there. I didn't know why I decided to do another one. And then like halfway through, it just kind of changes, and you hit this point where you realize that you're here to do things and for a reason. Of calm your mind. It definitely kind of changed my life in that I became a much calmer person and dealt with things a bit better and more level-headed than I used to. So I'm originally from New York, so I'm like East Coast, kind of aggressive, high-strung,
right.
And the whole yoga thing has kind of countered that part of my personality.
Right. And
over the years.
Do you still practice? Is meditation part of your daily yoga practice?
It's not daily. I have not managed to find a way to keep up with it, just because my life is kind of all over the place and I have so much going on. But I have gotten a lot better about trying to make more time for it than I used to. A few days a week, maybe, and the time kind of varies depending how much time I have and how motivated I am to sit.
Yeah, and
in silence.
And who do you look to, or where do you go to get your inspiration for yoga and your practice?
At this point, Asia. I kind of look back on it. It changes. It totally varies. I have some teachers in Portland that I adore, and they keep my practice going, and they physically and mentally, spiritually, the whole trifecta. Just by nature of being in Asia, especially India, I felt like I was just surrounded by that type of mentality where most people in India don't even practice yoga. They think it's a waste of time. Like most Indians, there are the major yoga hubs where it's where people go to do yoga in India. But I just found that even when people were telling me that they don't do yoga, it's that they don't practice it physically. Like they still already have the concept that they're living by the concept of yoga. They're very much karma-based people, and it was a very inspirational time.
Yeah,
to be in India for 6 months.
Yeah, I went to India. I think it was in 2004, and it was really life-changing. It was the most different. Up in Rishikesh, and it was the most different place. Yeah, that's where
I did my teacher training in Rishikesh.
Oh, that must have been beautiful.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, for sure.
And in our, so you have a really strong social media presence. You know, your Instagram, your nice website, your writings, your blog, and I'm wondering how you see the role of social media playing in the spread of yoga. Do you think it's a positive way for it to spread, or how do you navigate that?
That's a really interesting question, and it's one I've kind of been thinking about for a long time, because I've seen it's hard to tell, especially in the West. I feel like sometimes it's done for the wrong reasons, and it's hard, especially with you're trying to diminish your ego through yoga, and then you post something and you get 200 likes or 500 likes or 1,000 likes, and you're just like, okay, how do I get more? Because we're such an entrepreneurial society at this point too, and this is a way for exposure, and I get, for myself, I want to come off as authentic as much as possible. So I actually don't post yoga photos every day. I post them once in a while. I think it's hard. I think it is, and this goes back to the yogas as well, or actually this is Vipassana. The volition of the mind determines right action. So it's whatever your intentions are, I think is good. And I think people these days, because yoga is becoming so popular in the West, they're looking for something that is a bit more meaningful. Anyway, so social media is definitely helping yoga spread, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. What I have noticed is that some of the studios that I've had long-term attachments to are very much changing they're kind of moving their practices and their teaching away from the yoga foundations and the spiritual concepts more into workout phases,
right.
which is tough because it's becoming so much more popular. So I think that is making people go to classes and it makes them feel good, but they're not getting the full, the full circle of what yoga really is with the 8 limbs, and because people aren't talking about it as much as they should be, right, in my opinion. There's all these new people coming into yoga and not really understanding what it is other than a workout at some point.
Right. Yeah. Here at our yoga studio, we have between the 2 studios, we have, I think, 70 classes a week, but about 15 of them are 15 of them include meditation, pranayama, there's a kirtan, there's a philosophy class. So we try to present the full spectrum, although the majority of the classes are the asana-based. That's great. I've actually found, it's interesting because in Asia, it's very specific to which type of yoga you're practicing. And here it's pretty much yin and restorative, vinyasa flow classes, and hatha. There are ashtanga classes, there are younger classes, but most people don't know. I would say in my experience, just with my interactions, most people don't know the difference. They don't know where it came from. It's just vinyasa classes. And I have found some more balanced studios. Actually, the rock climbing gym I go to, there are some great instructors there that really, like, the last time I was there, she went into Ida and Pingala and moving through the chakras for the change of the seasons, and it was beautiful. Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it's just, but it's kind of a reevaluation in my own life because I just spent this crazy year in the East, so now I'm looking for both for sure.
Right, and I think all the teachers, it's also the every teacher's responsibility out there to, as a yoga teacher, if you're going to be a yoga teacher, to honor the whole tradition and include all elements of it in your class, even if it's in the tiniest little way, but you can still insert little phrases or little teachings that can help people to understand the bigger picture.
I agree completely. Yeah, it's definitely necessary. It can't just be a workout as it's becoming more popular, just because people are looking for more anyway. So might as well give them some easy stuff to kind of live by. The yamas and niyamas are an easy kind of spiritual guide to wrap your mind around.
Yeah, to navigating through this crazy world.
Mm-hmm.
And
it simplifies things.
Simplifies things, right? And what advice? So you're I deduced from your website that you're 30, and so you got into yoga when you were 20, and so I'm wondering what advice you would give to a teacher who's graduating from a teacher training and that's inspired to try to make yoga their livelihood, or the means of their support. What advice you would give them?
That's an interesting question because I'm actually not trying to make a living out of teaching yoga. For a while after I became an instructor, I thought I wanted to. I started looking into it. I started looking into how I could become this international yoga instructor that's teaching retreats all over the world and teaching just classes wherever I happen to drop in on a city or a country. And then in the West, I started looking at how to do it, and it's a lot of corporate yoga and the same thing, teaching workshops and retreats. And it just looks like so much effort to put into something that is just such a part of me and trying to make a business out of it. I've already spent time doing that with things like photography and graphic design, which I have been semi-successful with, but when I took off to travel for 2 years, I kind of put everything on the back burner. But it would just as with anything you love and you're passionate about, people don't go to a yoga teacher training to think they're going to make $1 million doing yoga. Most of the other students in my teacher training course, when I became an instructor, had no idea what they were even getting into and didn't practice yoga. I did it in Ashtanga, and they just wanted to come know about yoga. So it's to keep that curiosity and stay passionate about it and to just do what's right for you and do what serves you and not do it because you need to pay your rent. Do something else to pay your rent and teach because you love teaching. And wherever that might bring you, be proactive about it. But don't try and push the boulder up a hill that is going to stress you out because and like make you lose your love of it. It's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help your students.
Oh,
and that's kind of the most important thing.
Yeah, that's well said. So keep it as your passion and don't try and turn it into money. And then for some people, their passion does become a means of livelihood.
Absolutely.
And that can flow beautifully, but not to force it.
Absolutely. Yeah, just don't force it. Do it for the love of it.
Well, great, Amy. Anything else you'd like to share with the yogis out there in the world? We have members of our online studio in 40 different countries around the world. So
wow, amazing.
Any parting advice to everyone out there?
Keep practicing. This is a yoga crowd, so keep doing your thing. Keep loving it. Keep moving. Keep living the yoga life. That's all.
Living the yoga life.
Nothing crazy.
Good. Okay, great. So we've been talking today to Amy Rollo, and you can find out all about her travels and her blogs and her pictures at amyrollo.com. And any of you listeners out there who would like to share this podcast with others, to remind you that you can find it on pyo.yoga. We're also on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. So once again, Amy, thanks very much for joining us, and it's been great chatting with you.
It's been great chatting with you. Thanks for calling.
Excellent. And if you ever get down to San Diego, as I said, we have 2 beautiful studios and also a nice vegetarian restaurant. So we'd love to treat you to
amazing.
a meal at the restaurant. You can do some yoga at this studio and chill out in San Diego.
I will let you know when I am on my way to San Diego.
All right. Sounds good, Amy. Well, thanks for chatting.
Thanks for joining us. This has been a production of Pilgrimage of the Heart Yoga. Join us at our studios here in San Diego or visit us online at pyo.yoga. Namaste.